Today for the theory, I just give you some more information and then we go to the solos. Okay. So yesterday we talked about the bebop scales, the chromatic notes. And today I want to talk about the dominant chords in how to play the dominant chords in bebop and modern jazz music. Okay? They are very important. The dominant chords are very important because normally are the chords where we can play more different scales and more different things. No? Because they are instable chords. They go to somewhere else and we have a kind of better choice of different sounds to play over the dominant chord that we cannot play in the other scales because they have a stable sound. So we, in this type of music, in standards and bebop, we normally use different altered scales over the dominant chord, and the other chords we use always the same type of modes or scales. Okay, so what you will find normally in the great majority of standards and bebop tunes is the 2-5-1 situation. No, major, or the minor situation, which yesterday I spoke about this. Okay, sometimes you see this mixed up. So sometimes you see combining this. Like a minor to 5, apparently it goes to 1 minor and suddenly becomes 1 major. This is also, it comes from the classical tradition, no? The minor cadence going into major. Okay? So, why this is very important? The rest of the chords that we get on the bebop tunes, like the ones we are playing, the ballads and the normal standards, the rest of the chords, the minor may be thirds or sixth. The majors, apart from that, you only can find a major chord on the 7th, mostly, on the 4th. You know, and the rest, and especially in this bebop language, is 2-5s going somewhere else, different keys, or just 2-5-1s, or only the 2-5s. Okay? As the tunes we play, they are full of this. Then, when you see other chords not into a 2-5 or 2-5-1 progression, they probably are here. Of course, in the major key, another minor chord can be the 3rd of or the 6th, and another major chord, not the 1, only in the 4th. Okay? So, but when we work with the minor tonality, we have chords in different positions, as you can see. The same chords, they are in different positions. So if we are working like in A minor, like I put here yesterday. Hello. So A minor is like A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, so what we have? 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, and flat 7. Okay? This is the common minor tonality harmony, most used. So what we have a flat third chord, which is major. Okay. So if you are in C major and you are playing over the tune, and suddenly the tune has a 2-5-1 going to A minor, when C major appears, it's not 1 anymore. It's the third of A minor, right? All the flat thirds of a minor key are a major chord. Okay. Also, there is another thing which is very typical from the minor keys, is the flat 6. When you see things like this, like this is a kind of specific minor cadence going to 1. It's very, very common. Now instead of 2-5-1, flat 6, 5-1. And why a flat 6 is the F? In this case, we are in A minor. Okay. So the flat in the minor tonality, there is a very important note which defines the subdominant area. You remember last week we spoke about the major tonality and the important notes: the F, the fourth, and the seventh. Okay. So the fourth and the seventh in a minor key, they are important, but there is another note which is very important, which is typical from the minor key. The flat 6, okay? So in this case, A minor, the flat 6 is F. So for what is the flat 6 is important? It's important to define the subdominant area. All the chords with the flat 6 are subdominants in minor, okay? Of course, the fourth and the seventh also in minor are very important.
喺小調入邊，
Okay,
當六
this
級
is
呢個和弦
really
當下屬和弦功能喎。喺大調裏邊六當一㗎嘛，當主音㗎嘛，一六係兄弟㗎嘛。但係喺呢個情況下咧，喺小調嗰度咧，佢當下屬和弦用嘅，跟2-4嘅個功能就係。
Okay, so we have, this is the flat 6 of this key, A minor.
花係拉嘅降六音啊嘛，喺度從拉。
So all the chords that have this note, they go into the subdominant area in the minor key. So the most popular, this, of course.
有呢粒音嘅和弦都當下屬和弦，2、4、降六、降7都係。
Beer, Spanish beer. Okay. No, it's okay now because they were kind of very instable, very dominant. The Spanish beer falling apart. Okay. So the flat 6 makes any chord in the minor mode going into the subdominant, which means what? Means that they are half stable chords. They are not totally stable, okay? And they tend to go to the stable, no, like go to 1 to tonic, or they tend to go to dominant, so to more instable chords. So in the minor mode, these chords, the second, which in this case is B and F, are the typical subdominant chords. If you want to make something sound really minor, use these chords.
2同降六嘅 chord 喺小調裏邊特別有呢個下屬和弦功能。下屬和弦可以翻主和弦，亦都可以去救唔穩定嘅屬和弦噶嘛。記唔記得3種啊？主和弦、下屬和弦同埋屬和弦啊嘛，越嚟越唔穩定噶嘛。所以下屬和弦可以翻去主嘅，可以去繼續去屬和弦。喺小調裏邊咧，2級同埋呢個降六級嘅和弦咧，就係最有呢個功能噶啦。
Okay, so you know this, like you have seen this kind of in minor. very popular. So it's like 1, flat 7, flat 6, 5. So, tron, 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 okay? This is in pop music or whatever, it's very popular. So, what's this? Is 1, A is tonic, G and F are subdominant because they have the F note. Maybe G in this case no, because it's a triad. So if there is no F note in G, is not subdominant, minor subdominant. You cannot classify as a minor subdominant. Okay, but F is the minor subdominant. Is this one? Okay, here. So this is typical minor. This progression F major going to E7. It's like in minor is as strong as D minor and G7 going to C in the major mode. So the minor cadence can be this type or this type. Which is D, D, E, going to A. Okay? So it's very common and very popular in certain minor songs to make the cadence flat 6, 5th, 1. Like, you know this tune Night and Day called Portrait? Some people play the tune like this. Like this. So it is flat 6, dominant on the 5th. Okay? You know this song?
Yeah.
So it's the song starts with a cadence going into major, but it's a kind of minor. Okay, this is what I told you before, that you can do a minor sounding cadence and then suddenly you go to major. In classical music, this is called cadencia. What? Picarda? Yes, I don't know the name.
Picardy third.
Okay.
皮卡第三度，即係無啦啦咪有小調嘅感覺，無啦啦佢解決咗嗰個音。
In Portuguese, it's cadencia picarda. Because these names all came from Italian. From the classical harmony comes from Italian. So it's like in English and Portuguese, picarda is the cadence that you may think that goes to minor and goes to major. It's like a surprise. Okay. Okay. So for us, what's important, and for the improviser, what's important from the minor mode? From the minor mode, the most important thing, apart from playing it, is the dominant situation and the extensions of the dominant. Okay? So, bebop musicians love this chord. Why? Because they have this beloved flat 9 and the beloved flat 13. Okay? We have to get rid of the A because the A clashes with the G sharp. But the F clashes with the E and it stays there because it's the main dissonance of the minor dominant. Okay? Also the C on top is the flat 13, clashes with B, but because this is a dominant chord, normally is played Okay.
是唔得嘅，呢啲卡係屬七和弦先可以做呢啲第九降13和。
So this chord is very typical. Also, as you can see, and very used in bebop music, if you omit the one, you have a diminished chord here.
如果你拎走咗個根音，你淨係睇升傻士 re 花咧，你就得出一個減七和弦啦。咩叫減七和弦啊？每一個音程都係小三度嘅，你計下升傻去試試去 re 去花，全部都係小三度嘅。咁呢個我哋就叫減七和弦啦。
Okay, and the bebop players normally they never play the root. Why? For mathematical reasons. They want to go to the flat 9. If they play the root, they have to play 5 notes. Okay? And the phrases in bebop, as we are talking before, are made in groups of 4. Because we improvise on bebop like daba 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 daba. We don't improvise in 5 notes. So to play the flat 9s, we have to get rid of the first note. So we have 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9. Okay?
通常啲人唔玩根音嘅，咁你就可以直接可以3、5、7就去到9啦。咁因為 bebop 嘅句子都係8分音符為主，4個音4咁樣做噶嘛，所以咧就唔玩。
So I would say this arpeggio that's inside the dominant chord with the flat 9 is the most popular bebop device. No, this arpeggio. So it's like E7, you play the 3rd, the 5th, flat 7 and flat 9. Okay? You can hear that always, everywhere in all the solos. This position or inverted or whatever. So it's like one example that you know because you heard this many times like this. And then this flat 9 goes very nice into the 5th of the next chord.
嗱，講九音向下半音解決就係下一個 chord 嘅5度，你記住呢件事。所以化去到咪，去到拉數上去嘅咪，所以係拉嘅5度啊，記住呢件事。
So when you play this, ti ba da ba do ba da ba, okay, you play this, you are playing over E7, you are playing A minor harmonic. Okay? Even if you go to A major. So, in bebop, this is always there. Okay? You play over the dominant, you give a kind of ambiguous sound of minor, and then you go to major. Okay? Or you go to minor. Like in Little Willy Lips, that 2 5s going down. The minor, dominant, always going to minor. Okay? But they can go to major. But with this flat 9 trick, because the flat 9 lands into the 5th, so it doesn't matter if it's major or minor, okay?
所以呢個線條咧，你可以解決佢大和弦㗎。你 A 唔一定minor，因為佢到咪係5音嚟啫嘛，所以佢有可能係小，可能又可以大嘅。同一句你可以套喺5/1嘅大調或者小調度都得嘅。
So one thing you have to practice in your instrument to get used is like practicing the cycle of the 7th dominant with the flat 9. Means like ba ba do ba da be do ba da be bo do ba da be bo, like E A D G C F da 12 keys. Okay? Ti ba da ba do ba da be do ba da be do ba. Okay?
咁你就用5度圈嚟練習啦，練熟佢嗰句嘢啦，就全部都從嗰個 chord 嘅7音開始，你就嗰句7音開始，跟住就5 7，3 5 7降9。
If you play like this. No, better like this. Anyway, there are several phrases you can do practice like do ba da bo do ba da bo do bo. So you play like E A D G da da bo ba da ba da bo do da da de de do. Okay. It sounds a bit boring, but if you play this in all the keys, you know where these notes are. You are able to improvise using this device. So it's the most important device in bebop is this. Okay. Also, okay, please.
Actually, it can be C dot C at the very beginning, so it starts at the fifth of the chord.
Yeah.
Instead of beginning on
D da da.
D da
Di da da ba da be do bo do ba da. No, it's starting here.
The third, if it goes with the cycle of fifth.
Yeah. It's a question of writing this differently. Makes like a kind of a cyclic pattern, which is always the same. It's like the serpent that bites the tail.
Yeah.
You play. It's always the same, and you go to 12 keys. This is in classical harmony is kind of an infinite or whatever phrase, which is always going, and you go through the 12 keys, and then you come to the beginning again. Okay, so this doesn't practicing like that doesn't mean very much, but you should know, and you can hear in the solos, in the bebop solos. These guys are all the time playing this, all the time. Okay, different ways, but mostly this. Then some variations. Now, to play 5 notes, jazz musicians, they always do this. Because 5 notes are kind of difficult to handle. No? So, when they want to play 5 notes, they do this. They do a triplet. Very popular in jazz. Now I have 5 notes, but it's like top to Taiba. Okay, it's like ta ba da ba 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 da ba ta to ka ta ka ta. So you play 5, but the formula, the beat of the 1, 2, 3, 4 is always there, which is very important to play this type of music. Always, it's like a drum solo. It's like the same. Okay, so this is very popular, and what it does is arpeggio, or some variations. Of course, there. This goes into the sharp 9, flat 9, and then to the 5th. This also is very popular. So di da da ba da di da da. Okay, so you hear the flat, the sharp 9, flat 9 going down to the 5th is where they like to go, because this small phrase is totally in the minor sound. Even if it goes to major, it sounds minor. So this ambiguity in jazz music, it's always present. Since the bebop, always these players play a lot of phrases that sound minor, and then they are in major key. Okay? Especially over the dominant chords. So, this phrase is a variation of the first one, and you use the sharp 9, which in bebop most of the time is used to go to the flat and go to the 5th. So it's like all the time goes together with this goes down, together with the other one. Okay? Okay, and this is very important, because most of the time these phrases with the flat 9, sharp 9, they go down all the time. The resolution most of the time is going down. The same. Okay, the same applies to other extensions very used in bebop. Like we talked about this, the flat 5th goes down. Okay, if it's a flat 5th, it's flat, so goes down. So if you play G7 with the flat fifth, it's a D flat. D flat tends to go to C, not to D. To go to D should be C sharp, and then is not a flat fifth, is the sharp 11th. You understand? So the chord is bigger. Can you play G7, Rico? Play G7 with the flat fifth, yes. And then C major. Okay. See the flat fifth, okay?
如果 chord 嘅降五音咧，就都係向下解決嘅。
Now play G7, 9th, 7th, 9th with the C sharp on top. Now it's much bigger, it's sharp 11 chord. So G, yes, yeah. So this chord is much bigger than the other one because the other one is the flat fifth, is inside the chord here. So goes down. When it's on top, because you hear the 7 and the 9, so you have the same note on top of the chord, may go up. Because it's the sharp 11.
如果佢係升四音，頭先嗰個傻笑咧，發啦升哆嘅咧，佢當 sharp 4個音咧就係。
I'm writing here.
咁就會解決到哆咪嗦是 re 嗰個 re。但係如果佢
If you do this，
只係當降 re 嘅話，就係降五啫。G 嘅降五啊，就解決佢 C 嘅低音，就解決翻哆呢個音啦。
Okay. This is a 4-tone note. And this is the flat fifth. And the bop musicians, they use this all the time. All the time. Flat fifth, not sharp 11. Sharp 11 is a bigger chord. The sound is more bigger. Okay? So they use this, like Monk in the ballads is using this all the time. And these pianists in the bebop tunes, you can hear on the left hand sometimes this flat fifth. Not a chord with the 9th and the sharp 11. It's a totally different sound that you have to be aware of.
所以呢個係降五唔係升四咧，同我哋之前討論過2同9個意思一樣。你冇中間嘅嘢 support 佢咧，佢只係降低嗰個啫。
Okay, the same chord with the same notes. G7 sharp 11 is like this.
咁你要有9，見唔見到呢個啦
Okay.
你有9嘅
Very difficult. Very different.
先支持到升11呢個音嘅，你冇拉呢個音咧，你就唔當係升11嘅。
Why in this case is sharp 11? Because there is this note, and this note makes the other one go up to the position of the 11, not flat fifth. Okay. So the same applies to the sharp fifth, which is if it's sharp fifth, is this.
如果你 G7 升5嘅話咧，
This is one thing. The flat 13, which is the same note. Okay.
所以升5同降13唔同嘅，升 re 同降呢個意義唔同嘅，就要睇下有冇中間嘅個support啦。
This you can hear like in romantic piano music of the 19th century. It's like C major and then G7 sharp fifth. With the sharp fifth goes to the third. Because this likes to go up to this. Okay, so.
所以佢解決去 C 嘅時候，因為佢
Can you play this?
佢就解決 C 嘅3音。
No, this. Yes. Okay. And then do the.
古典音樂浪漫時期嘅鋼琴音樂咧，就用好多呢隻曲。
No, major 7. No, try it. No, G7. Okay. So if you play songs like kind of Dixieland, New Orleans songs, don't play sharp flat 13. It's wrong. It's not in the style. They play this. Not. Okay. So if you have like a trumpet player and play like, you know, it's like this note goes to that one. Okay. The kind of Armstrong, Louis Armstrong style. They didn't use flat 13s. That's in bebop. because the flat 13 sounds like this. Can you play this? G, B, F, and then if it's a flat 13, it's the same note. Likes to go down to this, so goes to the 9th.
會解叫做 C 嘅第九音，叫 C major 9大個級。
And this one, the flat 9, likes to go to the 5th.
嗰
Okay?
個降九音，我哋頭先講過啦，降九就去到下一個級嘅5啦。
Okay, this is very important if you play a chordal instrument, like piano or guitar, or if you do an arrangement, more important, because it's written, and if it's bad written, it will sound forever bad. Because of voicing in your guitar, it's just, and it's over. But if you do this in an arrangement, then it's forever. Of course you can say, oh, I don't like this arrangement, don't play it. Okay, but anyway, in your solos, also very important, because imagine you have a gig and some people said, okay, play something in the style of kind of old, like 20s. Okay? Don't play this. They play like this. So the pianist should play the 7 sharp 5th, and the soloist should go from the sharp 5th to the 3rd. Not to the 9th. If he goes to the 9th, sounds like Bossa Nova. Wrong. He made a skip of 40 years, you know, from the 20s to the 60s. Okay?
But I did chords with the flat 13 but natural 9 or
Yeah. Of course. With
Flat
natural
9.
9, those come from that minor key,
yeah.
because it comes from the melodic minor scale. Now I talk about where to get more extensions.
唔係呢個係自然小調。
No, we are no here. We are only talking about
即係佢未講到下個下部。
the first one, harmonic minor. All the chords come from here, come from the
呢個
harmonic
係
minor.
harmonic minor。如果嗰啲還原9降13嗰啲係melodic minor。
Okay. Now, this is what we get from mixing up the minor key with the major key, like the minor dominant, the dominant from the minor tonality, with the flat 9 and the flat 13, mixed up, going to major or to minor, whatever. This is what first bebop musicians did. Then after, also this is coming from before. If you hear the guys from the 30s, even the 20s, in jazz, they played this. They played like G7 sharp 5th, G7 flat 5th. This comes from the jazz tradition. The flat 13s and the sharp 11s is bebop. It's more modern. So if you treat a flat 13, a sharp 5th as a flat 13, then it sounds like Bossa Nova. And if you are playing a New Orleans tune, you are wrong. You are out of style.
所以個解叫做考究咯。如果揾翻舊 style 嘅先係用你個聲門嘴上去降咗落去，所以同一個音要點理解
So, other scales the jazz musicians start to use. There are two scales very important, and you can hear in the solos, in their solos. Is the melodic minor and the diminished scale. Okay, the melodic minor, as you know, okay, I write this in C. This is C melodic minor. I told you yesterday that the melodic minor is an hybrid, ambiguous scale, because it's half, first half is minor, second half is major. From here to the top is like C major scale. From here down is like C minor scale. It's the only scale like this. And from these scales, okay, so this scale has some very different sounds. It's like first chord is minor with the major 7. We spoke about this yesterday. Second chord is D minor 7. If you see, these chords are very strange, and the other chords seems that they come from the major key. Okay, because the second, the fourth, they are not really minor. Okay, so when you see that like this second degree of the melodic minor scale, it seems that it's C major. Why? Because that's missing A flat. That's the reason this scale is half step between major and minor. It's a hybrid scale. Okay. So for what the importance of this scale in jazz music? The players in Bebop, they went to just this is for explain more or less for why they start to use this scale. Because of the Triton. When you play, imagine there is a 2/5 and the piano player plays this. D, going to C. And then Charlie Parker likes to play the Triton and he does this. Okay? So what happens? When he plays the solo, he plays da da da, plays this phrase. And when he gets here, he plays this one. And he needs more space. Okay. So when he plays like da 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 dee, that's the Dorian, and then da 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 ro 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 ro. This is the dominant, mixo Lydian. Hello. Can you play Rico? Can you play this? Play G7 down. E agora? Yes. Okay, so it's like should be mixo Lydian. G flat major scale here. No? Okay. Yes. So there is one note that sounds really bad here. All sound dissonant, but this one sounds really bad. Okay? And what did the guys start to play? They start to play this note natural.
因為個降梳同埋個梳降九度咪同根音降九度好大鑊㗎嘛，所以咧佢哋就拱翻上嗰個 G， 所以個 alter scale 就咁嚟嘅。 明啊？
I don't know exactly what happened, but probably was something like this by ear. So, Tritone Substitution, and then the pianist and the rhythm section playing the normal chord. And then the soloist by ear played this note to fit with this. When he played this note, it changes totally the scale. It makes takes as another name. But at the time of Charlie Parker, they had no names for this. So he just played this, which nowadays we call this the Lydian dominant scale, which is a mixolydian scale with the sharp.
跟 D flat 走啊，睇唔睇得明先？嗱 D flat 呢個音階嘅話咧，佢一開始照走 D flat，D flat 應該係邊啊
？So
D flat 係 G
by I think that this was by ear. They get into this by ear because when Charlie Parker started to explore, and Charlie Parker and the other guys, the Tritone substitution, you know, they played in jump sessions and gigs with rhythm sections from the swing, not boppers. So the rhythm sections played the normal chords, and they improvised with the tritones. So by ear they adjusted notes, and the note that they always adjust is the root. The root is the same. So all the other notes are extensions to G7. All the other notes of that D flat, it's all extensions and notes of the G7 chord. Okay?
所以呢個 melody 係中嘅，你左手照彈 G7 呢個 part， 你右手就照玩，即係你 melody 就照掟呢個音階落去。
Flat fifth. No, with the G natural. Yes.
咁你得出一個乜嘢啊？其實就係某一個 melody。
If I organize these notes over G7, they take these names.
所以你咁樣去分析咧，佢全部除咗3、7音之外咧，同埋根音咧，全部都係升9降9同埋升5降5嚟㗎。個 auto scale 係咁樣嚟嘅。咁點解佢叫 Lydian dominant 啊 ？dominant 就係降7音啊嘛。對 D flat 嚟講啊嚇，係 D flat 嘅 Lydian dominant， 因為疏還原疏係 D flat 嘅升4音，所以嗰個係 mixolydian 嘅音階，但係4音升咗。邊個係4音啊？就係降疏呢個音，因為佢唔想同 G 撞咗啊嘛。所以同一個名嚟嘅啫，你叫乜嘢都得㗎。所以嗰個 auto scale 係咁樣嚟嘅。
This is quite. The guys that play already, you know how to play the scale, but this is quite complicated to understand. Okay, so now if the rhythm section is playing G7 and you play this scale, you play the flat fifth, the third, the sharp 9, flat 9, the 1, the flat 7 and the flat 13. All the alterations. So after the jazz start to be studied in universities, this is called the Lydian dominant scale. If the bass, if you consider the name of the scale in D flat, Lydian dominant. If you consider over G, this is called the altered scale or super Locrian scale. If the bass is G.
睇你對邊個嚟講啦，對 G 嚟講咧，呢一集全部都係啲轉嘅音 alter 嘅音路，所以叫 alter scale。對 B flat 嚟講就係佢嘅 Lydian dominant， 明唔明啊
？Okay, so the Lydian dominant and the altered or super Locrian scale is exactly the same.
And mixolydian shuffle.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. So what happened? What happened? When they start to play this all the time, they start to create a sound which is now called the altered scale, which means that all the minor sounding extensions are there. All flat 13, flat third, which is the sharp 9, flat 9, and flat fifth. It's all flat. Okay? Why? Because this is the tritone, is a chromatic approach into the 1. So all is flat to go down. Okay? So now people use over a G7 the altered. The only thing you are doing is playing D flat 7 instead of G7. That's the reason when we start last week to play these bebop tunes. First you have to understand why you change the scale. Like in sipping up bells, at the end, like this, okay? But if the rhythm section in this tune, Sipping at Bells, instead of D flat minor, G flat 7, played C7, it's okay. Means the melody is playing the altered. For our ears now. But for these guys, it's like playing the Tritone Substitution and going over the chords. Okay? I think it's better to play, you play much better if you sing like this, and then now you see, okay, now I know what is the altered scale. Okay, it's this Tritone Substitution, but instead of thinking about playing the arpeggios of the chords, I just play a scale and I play all the extensions. Okay, that's it. It's more easy to explain like this, but it's more easy, it's more rewarding if you understand the other way, because it's the way they work these out. Okay, so first you understand why this scale comes, and then you start to play and try to get the most out of it, you know, because there's more than play the scale up and down. If you think on the Triton, you can have the intervals, everything, the arpeggios, everything, and the phrases they play, okay? I show you, I found several times in some solos in the tunes we are playing, the guys playing the altered. Like, now it's called the altered. In their time was called the Triton. Okay? Now, there's another scale which is very close to this one, but has another particularity, which is the diminished scale. Okay? How they get into the diminished scale, the jazz musicians, exactly for the same reason. If you play a chord, a G7, okay, if you play this chord, it's like a G7, 13, flat 9. It's like this is sharp 11, 13, flat 9. Okay, it seems that all the notes can be used in the altered scale, but there is one note that it's not. It's this one, no? This natural 13. So this is not totally minor. This goes to major. Okay. So when they started to make these phrases with the flat 9s and flat 5ths or sharp 11s, going into major. This scale comes out because of the tritone, no? When they instead of this they play this. Okay. when you play this scale, before it was like here was like a flat, right? If you play natural, you get the beginning of the diminished scale is missing one note, and this scale gets more close to this because of the E. Now the E is the third, so this is like T da 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 da, and there's one note still. No T ba da ba da 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 D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 notes. It's exactly symmetrical. So when they start to use this or no, I don't know. The only thing is like that scale existed, was played extensively by the classical composers in the 20th century. Okay, it's an artificial scale. It is not possible to find this scale in any of the minor and major scales. Why is artificial? Because it's 8-note scale. It's the division of the octave in 8 equal parts.
呢隻 diminished scale 咧有8個音㗎。咁個8個音點嚟嘅咧？就係其實前面嗰忽左邊嗰忽咧係從個 alto scale 嚟㗎嘛，但係佢後邊諗咧佢解決到 C 大調，所以有個還原 E。加翻個 re 咧，你就會見到咧成個音佢有8個音㗎啦。咁呢8個音有乜特別咧？你排一排咧，全部一定係先半音後全音，或者先全音後半音嘅。你排一次就知道㗎啦。所以咧呢種咧係一個人工化做出嚟嘅 scale 嚟嘅，佢唔係自然產生嘅。古典音樂家其實已經開始用㗎啦。
Okay, what happens is like if you think in terms of playing a Tritone substitution over a dominant chord without being very radical, like with the altered, you play this and you have half out of G7 and half in G7. So 4 notes are inside G7, 4 notes are outside. The altered is almost all the notes outside. Okay?
聽得明啊？4個 in 4個 out 嗰個聲就係梳化妙嚟就係自然嘅延伸音嚟㗎嘛，上邊嗰4粒咧就係所謂 alto 嘅延伸音嚟㗎嘛。咁所以呢個 scale 嗰8粒音咧就係咁樣特性，4粒嘅。
These notes fit here. These notes extensions. So they start to use both scales at the same time. The other sounding more minor because of the flat E flat, and this one sounding a compromise between what they was normal and the tritone, like first part of the scale out, second part in. Okay, and this scale, which is very important because it's totally symmetrical. So you can play this scale in 4 keys.
我哋話呢種音階咧係個對稱嘅音階嚟㗎，因為佢全部都係固定㗎嘛，一定係半音同全音。咁同一條音階咧可以套落另外同一條音階可以套落另外3個 key 㗎。你而家 G 係咁樣開始出發咧 ，B flat、C sharp 同埋 E 咧都一模一樣嘅，只要夾個小3度，因為佢本身所有每兩個音就係夾一個小3度嘅，所以同一個音同一 set 音其實就有4個 key 都可以用嘅，都係同一隻點嘅。所以呢個世界得3條嘅啫，因為呢個世界得12個 key 啫嘛。咁你一條可以用4個 key 落，咁得3條咯。
Okay. So if you play the scale, diminished scale over G7, D flat 7, E7, or B flat 7, is always the same scale because this scale is artificial and there are only 3 scales. You know this? Like all the artificial scales cannot be repeated 12 times. Impossible. So, like for instance, the whole tone scale, the step, 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 you only can transpose this twice. There are only 2 scales.
全音階識唔識啊？全音階就係每一個音都係夾大 key 度嘅，夾一個全音，所以得兩隻嘅啫。因為你一隻咧就已經玩咗6個 key 㗎啦。
Okay, if this one has 8 notes, is artificial, can only be transposed 3 times. If you go up, do, de, 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 then half step up, different scale, half step up, different scale. More half step up, the same first scale. Okay? So, because of its symmetry, if you play that scale, you can go to C, you can go to G flat, you can go to A, and you can go to E flat. Interesting. So, perfect scale for the boppers to go to different keys with the same scale. No, modulating easily with any phrase of the diminished scale at any key.
你就可以用呢隻 scale 轉到唔同 key 啦。你睇左邊寫4個咧，都可以去到右邊4個嘛。即係你從 G 出發咧，就可以同住啲 scale 去 C、去 G flat、去 A、去 E flat 都得嘅。因為佢呢個咁樣嘅特性。
So, and the scales are very similar. If you start a diminished scale or an altered scale, depending on the note you start, they are exactly the same most of the time. And then by the end, they make the difference because there is only that flat 13, the E, which is natural there, and the other one is flat. So, after I play some solos here, and you will say which scale are they playing. So these guys first, they start to play the phrases, small phrases like you know, on minor thirds, like if you do like you are playing the diminished scale, but it kind of arpeggios.
佢會用一個動機嚟玩嘅，佢頭先就係講佢玩完一個動機咧，佢就直接移上小三度，一模一樣嘅嘢就可以玩翻出嚟，因為佢全部嘢對稱嘅嘛。
If these people start to play by arpeggios, as I told Charlie Parker, they did like this is a diminished scale. If you put all this together, comes that scale. But you hear this and say, okay, this is a kind of diminished lick going up in minor thirds, okay, which is exactly that, okay. So this is the beginning of the use of the diminished scale, and then they assume the diminished phrase and go like diminished, okay. So with that you can go to 4 different keys. Depending, these things, I mean, in theory it says, I understand, now I understand this. This is, you have to play here and then play. Otherwise you don't know where to finish the phrase. If you do like, now I'm going to a flat major. Hey, where should I stop? Because there is a place where you have to stop.
解釋就容易啊，咁我哋要咧玩得出同埋聽得出。咁好似佢頭先講咧，如果你想用佢轉調嘅話，咁你就要好清楚你喺邊度個音先得啦。所以一定要聽得出、玩得出先算。
Because when you play the diminished scale, the scale is totally equal. Everything sounds the same. So it's very difficult to get lost.
所以會好容易蕩失路嘅，因為佢一模一樣㗎嘛，佢每個位都。
Okay, these guys, they had preferences in using the scale, and maybe they use the scale and they go always to the same note, to the third of the next chord, something which is off step on the way. No, because if you play the diminished run, you don't know where to open the door to get off, because sounds exactly the same all the time. No, I can play there. So if you have like the G7 going to C, so G7 I play diminished scale like. Okay, on the way there are several places where I can land in the next chord. No. In the fifth, no. difficult. Off step, ninth. Okay, like. Okay, so you can land in different notes. The only problem is like the scale sounds always the same. Always, very difficult. The altered scale is much more easy. Okay? It's much more easy playing the altered scale than the diminished. Okay? You know why? Because the altered scale is tonal. You get this scale out of the melodic minor, right? And the diminished scale is atonal, no tone. It's from the outer space.
因為個 alter 其實就係實際上都係一個 melodic minor 嚟㗎嘛，係另一個 key 嘅 melodic minor 嚟㗎嘛，所以你都係會聽得出嗰個調性嘅。但係 diminished scale 嘅類型咧就冇調性嘅。
So the most famous phrase in with the altered scale, which you have to learn, because all the jazz musicians play this phrase. All. I'm going to write. It's the beginning of a song. Okay. You know this? Ti da do 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 do. Okay. This is the most famous. Can you play G7 and this phrase? No. Ti da. C flat. C flat.
C la mi C.
C la mi. Ah. Okay. Yes. Major or minor is the same. So, I think this is the beginning of an American standard called Gone with the Wind. It's like da do 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 da da we, you know. So they start to use this beginning of this song over the altered scale. This is the most famous altered lick. Everybody plays this. So be careful when you play this in a jam session, because maybe all the other musicians start to sing this. Okay, if they are good, maybe they start to sing this. If they are bad, maybe you are the best, because you know a phrase that they don't know. Okay? You can hear on Monk composition Round Midnight, this on the intro. Ba ba da ba bi da ba bi ba ba bi ba ba bo do bo ba ba da ba bi ba bo bi ba bo bi ba bo bo. This is Around Midnight, the intro. Okay. So even Monk was playing this. Also, this seems that the tune that sexy sax man plays. Which is what the name of the Yes, there is from this. No?
Yes.
Okay. You know what I'm talking about. So, okay. So now we play, but we have to listen these guys playing these things. So we make a break and we play. I have to watch the